Hello. In this last session of political sociology, the main thing that we're supposed to be talking about is what unique problems and what unique opportunities come in applying the ideas of political sociology to the places where we in our program mostly concentrate our research, especially the post-socialist states of Europe and of parts of Asia. And I suppose that probably one of the biggest challenges that we have is that an assumption of a lot of political sociology, which developed in Western Europe and in North America especially, is that the societies that we are dealing with are stable. They're characterized by stable institutions of long standing, which are well established, that have a lot of continuity. That is often not the case in societies that are confronted by rapid and frequent change. I suppose that we are probably also confronted by the institutionalist assumption, that is, the assumption that law and related documents describe practices that actually happen in everyday life. These are assumptions that do not hold in the states where I concentrate my research, in the states of Southeast Europe, the so-called Balkans, especially states of the former Yugoslavia. In those states, what you can see is not only rapid change and a lack of stability of institutions, but also places where some assumptions break down. The assumption about representativeness of politics and the formation of identity and orientations through politics tend to break down. What you see instead is widespread distrust in and escape from the political world, with culture becoming more prominent than politics as a source of identity and meaning and orientation. Another difference that you find is a difference in social structure. If we want to talk about the difference between classes, the difference between classes is less strongly defined by financial capital, that is, by differences in income or in property, and more strongly defined both by social capital, that is, the ability to call on personal connections in order to solve problems, and on cultural capital, that is, the ability to draw upon markers of status and prestige to assert a social position. But we see some other differences that are also important. Among these other differences are porous boundaries existing. First of all, between state and party, it becomes very difficult to distinguish what is activity of a state and what is activity of a party. And we also see porous boundaries between state and civil society, between the public and private sectors. What happens is that the political world, especially the party portion of the political world, tends to exert its control and expand it into areas outside of the political. And together with this, you see a paradoxical phenomenon, which is that, at least in political life, ideology is relatively unimportant. There are very few meaningful ideological differences between political parties and political movements, but at the same time, ideology is very important in cultural life and in the ways that meanings are made and the ways that differences and conflicts within the societies are approached. Now, what does this tell us about political sociology? Well, it tells us something that's one of the basic insights of political sociology, which is that we may think that we know something about politics, that we understand politics, if we follow political events when that are covered in the news, if we follow what politicians are up to, what political parties are up to, what are the headline events. But we don't. The activity that is meaningful politically is not happening at the level of political gossip. It's happening deep within the society. This is where the sources of change, the sources of creativity, sometimes also the sources of disorder and destruction are found, is deep in the social structure. Another thing that we may find that's of interest to political sociology is that it's in places in the semi-periphery, in less powerful states that nonetheless participate in global movements, that meetings of the local and the global take place, and these meetings are more interesting than we think, although a lot of news coverage will tend to describe to us political conflicts as conflicts between pro-Western and pro-Russian parties, this sort of thing. Very often this is not what's happening. and the relations between East and West on the conceptual level and on the level of activity within these societies are far richer and more meaningful. Now, these are insights coming from studies in political sociology of the region where I concentrate, the Balkans. The Balkans may also be interesting because during a time when we see a general decay or collapse, if you like, of political institutions in the so-called West, the Balkans emerge as a kind of demon figure. There is political division in a country, or regional division in a country, or other types of division, social division, gender division. You'll see a flood of opinion columns in the popular media talking about how the country or the West or the world is becoming Balkanized. Now, here's what I think. That the differences and conflicts that we find in societies like the Balkans are ones that are defined by because of scarcity and because of powerlessness, closer meetings and closer communication of political situations that are definitive in the world with the everyday experience of people in their lives, and that this might be the condition that is Balkan. So when we talk about the world becoming Balkanized, we're missing an important fact, and that is that the world already was Balkan and wasn't aware of this. And political sociology gives us some insight on this fact. This is my thought about the intersection between our region of study and the field of political sociology for our discussion. It's meant to provoke or catalyze discussion. You will certainly have your thoughts about this and other thoughts about political sociology, and I'll look forward to discussing those with you in our last session this week.